Hi guys, Cassie here, and today we're going to be going over the 5 reasons why I love Might and Magic VIII. Now, you might be looking at these graphics and going, oh boy, this looks rough, and you would be right. It's true. It's a game from back in 2000. When it was released, I was 6, so it doesn't really have today's graphics. But despite that, I absolutely love this game, and I wanted to go into some of the reasons why. Now you might be thinking, I don't think anyone asked for this review or necessarily wants this review, and for that I would point to the wise words of Jenna Marbles.
I'm having me time. Get out.
So yeah, I do what I want, and what I want to do is talk about this game. So the very first reason is just the depth of this game. It's incredible how much we had to use this guidebook. There's so many things that you wouldn't be able to see unless you read up on it, particularly with regards to the dungeons. The dungeons are really well thought out, and they have a lot of actual legitimate traps and stuff. So there are things that you really do need the extra help with, or at least I always needed it. I admire anyone that could do the game without any help at all. But you know, it's simple stuff like one of the dungeons, you have to look up at the ceiling to be able to see the correct path to get to the other side of the room, or you would have to know which buttons to push in sequence, stuff like that. I just absolutely loved about this game. So the next thing that I loved about this game is that you had a party. It wasn't just you against the game, it was you and up to 4 other characters that would be going against all of the things that the game had to throw against you. And I found that this added a really interesting strategy element to the game. Now, at the beginning, you don't really know better. You just end up with the people that are available. So you end up with the cleric, the wizard, the vampire, and then eventually you get the knight. But as you branch out, you get to see a lot of different types of characters. You get to have dragons, you get to have trolls, minotaurs, and you also eventually find the higher level characters of all of these. So the wizard eventually can become a lich, the cleric, I can't remember what the cleric turns into, but the higher level of the cleric, and then the vampire turns into a Nosferatu, etc., etc. So at different times, your party will need different skills, and so there might be a mission where you need to be invisible. So you might need to have a wizard, or you might want to use a vampire with their mist form ability. And then at other times, you might want more brute strength. So you might want a party basically entirely filled with dragons. In most cases, you want a lot of dragons. But I always found that part of the game made it really fun for me, and I really enjoyed having an entire set of people to go into battles with. So, since we've mentioned dragons, it's time to go about why I absolutely love the dragons in this game. And the only real disadvantage of the dragons is what I'm about to show, which is that they can't have anything equipped on them. So they are what they are. You know, their armor class doesn't change except for when they level up, and they do the damage that they do, and that's it. You can't do anything to improve on them because dragons are already infinitely superior to all of the other characters in the game. So right now, all of my characters are level 5. So they all are at the same level. And my dragon does so much more damage than the rest of my characters. So the rest of my characters are maybe doing like 1 to 10 damage if they're lucky, more like 1 to 5 for the most part. The dragon is doing like over 40 every time. And not only that, it's really in your best interest to level up the dragon as quickly as possible, because the dragon, their abilities are quite incredible. So the only one that I don't really use is the one that comes at the first level, which is fear. I guess it just, makes the enemies run away from you, which could be useful in some situations, but I never really used it. The main thing that I would use would be the additional flame power that they have there, because it can hit, it's called Flame Blast. It can hit more than one enemy, so it can really wipe out an entire room. And then the last thing that I use for the dragon is always their flying ability, because their flying ability just makes things so much easier. Like if you want to just go to an area, drop down, steal the gold, steal a chest, because there's usually chests all around the map. If you want to just do that with a dragon, you can do that. With any other thing, you can't do that. So eventually your wizard can fly, but your dragon can do it much earlier on. It didn't cost that much for me to be able to take my level 5 dragon, turn him into a master dragon, and be able to fly. And it just makes traveling anywhere so much more convenient. And it's just by far the best character that you can have in the game. And that's why it can be so overpowered if you have them early on in the game. So it can kind of be a good thing to not play with them as early on, because then it just makes your game a little bit more balanced. But it's just fun. It's so great when you do get them, regardless of whether you get them at the beginning of the game or the end of the game. I find them to be a staple of any party. So dragons are a really hard act to follow, but when I think of Might and Magic VIII, one of the main things that I think about is the way that you fight in the game. Now, if you want to make the game hard for yourself, you can just not use the turn-based fighting, fight exactly how I'm fighting now, where you have to chase after your enemies, and you can easily get overwhelmed when there are swarms of them. Or you can go ahead and take advantage of the turn-based fighting, where your party will go, the enemy will go, it's a back and forth, and it basically just kind of pauses the fight, sort of, but still lets you participate in it. And I find, again, that kind of harkens back to Dungeons and Dragons, where you basically, when you're playing in a dungeon, you roll for initiative, you decide who goes first, and then you go back and forth that way. I really like that aspect of this game, because it means that regardless of how old you are, you can still enjoy this. You can enjoy a first-person shooter, well, of sorts, first-person RPG, without having the stress of not having it be turn-based. And being able to have that option, I've always found was great, and it's a main component of this game that I would like to see in other games. So saving best for last, the main reason why I absolutely love this game is simple, it's personal, it's nostalgia. This game was so much a part of my childhood. It's one of the only games that I have played more than once, where I've gone from beginning to end, and I've done it with, different characters, and I've been a part of the experience, not just from my perspective, but what we used to do when we were little is my dad would play the game. We had this old Windows 98 computer. He would play the game, and then he would have us sit beside him. We would choose a character that we wanted to represent us, and then he would let us decide what our character did on our turn. And then when we got a little older, then he would help us play our own game, and we would always go back and forth, me and Alex, You know, one night would be his turn to play his character, and then the other night would be my turn. And it was just such a family bonding experience that, you know, I can't give that to somebody else. I can't give somebody else the love that I have for this game because it's so personal to me. But that is the number one reason, regardless of whether or not it's shared. And because I'm so happy to have found this game again and to have been able to play this game again, I wanted to talk about a website. Not getting paid to talk about them, not sponsored, not any of that stuff, but Good Old Games is basically a website where they have a bunch of really old games. So you can go on there and, you know, if you have a game that you scratch the, you know, ever-loving heck out of the CD and you can't play it anymore and you really still want to play it, just like I did, check to see whether it's on Good Old Games, because chances are it might be. And I'm very grateful that I was able to find this game again, because it just brings me back to a time where, you know, gaming was new and fresh, and it was just great for me, and it inspired me to be who I am today. So it made it so that when I went later on in life, that I wanted to continue playing games, and now I do reviews for Tasta. So I can't thank this game enough. Please let me know in the comments down below if there's any game that makes you nostalgic. Is there any game that you played with your family when you were growing up, or that you enjoyed with your friends as well?